Hi, welcome back to Gold Derby. I'm Christopher Rosen. I'm pleased to be joined by director Reinaldo Marcus Green, whose new film is King Richard, in theaters now and still on HBO Max for at least another week or so, about the King Richard Williams and the Williams sisters, Venus and Serena Williams. Reinaldo, great. It's a great film. So much fun. I know it was a long road for you to even get the gig. And I know it was a passion project of Will's. And I had read in other interviews you had done that, you had a meeting with Will and Westbrook and had to kind of talk about your vision for the film ideas. And I just love to hear you talk about what that meeting was like and how you kind of sold yourself, I guess, to get this gig.
Look, it was amazing to meet somebody that you grew up watching on television, right? And so of course I thought a lot about, what am I supposed to bring to this meeting? Am I supposed to bring a presentation, or what should I talk about, or how should I look even? It was a lot of thinking about that. And I was like, you know what? I just need to be myself. I rocked up in a hoodie and a leather jacket and was like, Will just needs to see me as a dude who, has worked his way up to try to get in this room and feels like he deserves to be here. And part of that deserves to be here was like, look, I went to film school. I had studied. I had made my first film. I was in the right place at the right time. And I had a point of view of the film. I had a point of view of how I can hopefully elevate, what was on the page. That included talking about my version of the script and how I would, enhance it. I talk about my strength in casting. And I can use an example like Monsters and Men, John David Washington, Anthony Ramos, Shantae Adams, like Kelvin Harrison Jr. I can talk about that. And I can talk about how I saw building this family. And so those are the things I kind of went into my meeting with Will about. Of course, the personal connection, right? I spent the first third of my life on a baseball diamond. I had a father that wore short shorts and could have been misunderstood by the public because he was an eccentric dad that brainwashed his kids into being baseball kids. And I understood that, but I also understood what it was like having a loving father who was committed to his two children, never missed a game, gave us every possible thing he could give us, every tool, and equipped us with, education as a fallback. Baseball didn't work out for us. So if tennis didn't work out for the Williams, they would have still gone to Ivy League schools like my brother did. And so I understood that uniquely well and intimately well. And that was the pitch. Look, I said it the same way I'm talking to you is the same way I'm talking to Will. I think he could tell I'm passionate. I'm a baseball player. I come in with big ideas. And look, I grew up a Mets fan. I mean, as you know, growing up a Mets fan, you've been through some hardship in your life, but you still are optimistic. You're still optimistic about how you can build this thing, how you could. And I think, look, Will, I would liken him to Tom Brady leaving the New England Patriots and looking to go to Tampa Bay in order to look for a championship. And I think he was really in pursuit of greatness. And sometimes you need to change, you need to go younger. You need to go with a younger director that has that kind of energy, who you feel like is going to be with you on that journey, or the type of energy that it takes or require to make a movie like that. And so when I left that meeting, I felt like I laid it all on the table. Look, it was a poker face. I didn't feel like, he definitely did not let me know I got the job. And I was like, well, at the end of the day, I met Will Smith and that was cool. And I'll tell my mom, but then look, a week and a half later, I was able to tell my mom that Will hired me, in conjunction with the studio and the producers. And that was a really great place to be, at that point in my career. And then of course, that's where the real work starts.
I love everything you said there, and we talked before this. I am a Mets fan also, so I understand the heartbreak that comes with being a Mets fan. I think it does. It is very. It helps you really have a strong sense of yourself, I guess, or just whatever. But you mentioned something there. I thought that was really interesting. I mean, the reviews for this, and obviously, I'm not the first. Will's incredible in the film. It's a great movie star performance, and it's also a great acting performance. You know what I mean? He's doing everything, and yet it's a new thing for Will, I think, or at least something that maybe he hasn't had an opportunity to flex. And I guess being a fan of his work, obviously, I'm sure you are, that perspective coming in and being able to know what he's really good at, but also push him a little further, I guess. Can you talk about that? And I think that's one of the great things about this film, is that Will is so incredibly good in it. So
yeah, look, I think there's two things, right? One is truly a desire to want to be good. right? And that comes with preparation and commitment. And one of the first conversations was figuring out, like, of course, when I went into the meeting with Will, I didn't know how available Will is, right? You hear these horror stories about actors that show up, for 5 minutes, and then you're working with their body double for half of it. And you just hear these stories and about who's available and who does how much work. And Will was like the exact opposite of that. He literally was like, I have cleared the slate for this movie. So we were talking every day for months before we ever got on set. Everything from the script and the intention in each scene to the character development, and then assembling a cast around Will, because that was, I think, obviously a large contribution to the movie, but also gave Will dance partners. All of the girls in the van, led by Sanaya Sidney and Demi Singleton, Anjanou Ellis. I mean, Will had really formidable actors to go toe-to-toe in scenes with. Tony Goldwyn, John Bernthal. He had just exceptional talent that were available to him. So when we were workshopping, so many pearls were coming out. And look, part of my style is improvisational. So I'm taking the script, obviously, and mending it, making it come alive. And that's the part of any director. But I think ultimately, that's what I hope the scenes feel lived in. I hope they feel breathed in. I hope it feels like, we were not so finite or so rigid in our process, that we allowed things to really unfold. We allowed comedic moments to happen. And that only happens when you have real dance partners within scenes. So obviously building a team around Will, spending a lot of time dissecting the script and really enhancing that. And look, we did that with the writer. Zach Balin wrote a beautiful script, and I was so fortunate to have him throughout the entire writing process. He remained on through prep and production. And so when I needed new pages, Zach was right there to do that. Zach was in on every conversation. He was in on every script read. He was in on every breakout session. So we were able to really get into the nuances of character through that sort of preparation process. And that was really helpful. So that was that process with Will. And look, Will comes from the era of wanting to be directed. He very much is, tell me where to go. Where do you want me? Where do you want me? It's not, I need to be here. Like, Will is very intuitive and very aware of circumstance and how things run. So long as you are guiding him to a space that feels safe, he is like a kid in the candy store. He's ready to go 100 takes. And Will's the kind of, like, no, I didn't get it right. Like, I want one more. Like, yeah, well, I got it. Like, I don't need, it was so much fun working with him, because he was also as generous off screen as he was on screen. So I had not only an actor, but I also had a producer and someone that was able to keep me insulated in the pocket, so to speak. Gave me a certain level of protection, I would like to believe, a buffer between myself and the studio in some ways. And look, I was very supported by Warner Brothers, but as you know, films could easily get taken away or just completely go away if they want them to. Your power can wane very quickly. And fortunately for me, that didn't happen. They were very happy throughout the process. They were happy with the dailies that they were seeing. And I think because Will is such a powerful person, he obviously has a lot of influence. So of course they're checking in with their big star frequently about his experience. And so long as Will is happy, everyone's happy. And I think Will was happy. I think I could say that. I think we bonded very, very well. I felt like a young coach, and I had I would say old player, but I had a player that like still had a lot of gas in the tank. Like, Will had far more energy than I did, and like he just run a lot more marathons. It was my first marathon. It was my first this is the big leagues, and I'm here now. And this takes a tremendous amount of physical stamina, as much as mental stamina. But I think, there were a lot of decisions that were made that I think that we did right. I was very lucky. I was very supported by an amazing crew that included Robert Elswit, cinematographer, Pamela Martin, editor, Chris Bowers, music, Sharon Davis, costumes, Wynn Thomas, production designer with Bill Arnold, so many craftsmen, 30 plus years of craftsmanship, on top of, hopefully my knowledge of film to this point. So I had a lot of great great people a great team assembled to help pull this one through.
Yeah, it's an incredible. I mean, I wanted to ask you about actually a couple of those people you mentioned. Robert Elswit obviously is an incredible cinematographer. People know him from like his collaborations with Paul Thomas Anderson, and Michael Clayton is one of my favorites as well. Yeah. I mean, I think when you watch the film, and I was like, oh, there's a version, I guess, of this movie that is a lot more. You know, I don't want to like, I don't know. It's just not what this is. And I think you make it feel by having him as the DP, it feels so much more realistic and like creative and stuff. And I guess, can you talk about, I don't know, like what were your conversations with him about how you wanted it to look and like kind of how you kind of came to the visuals of it? Because I do think it's really, really gorgeous film. And on top of like this, you know, obviously a great story.
Like as soon as I got the job, and Robert was the first person on my list to go to. It wasn't like, you know, look, I love Dickens and I love lots of people, but Robert specifically was the first person because I met him. I met him at the Sundance Lab in 2018 actually in 2017 with my movie Monsters and Men that I was workshopping, my first film. And I remember meeting him there organically and said, if I ever have a film that I think is right for Robert, I'm going to go back. And this film, I thought, look, he's from LA. He lives in LA. He grew up in that, you know, he knows that era very, very well. He shot some of my favorite films during that era, including, you know, Boogie Nights and Magnolia and lots of films. So, and he's a classic American storyteller. Never did I ever feel like his cinematography ever got in the way of the drama of anything. If only it's only enhanced that. It's grounded realism, but he also has like a flair and a personality. So there's humor. There's just a sophistication to his blocking. And it's so indicative of all the films that he's made. But I thought if I can lend that level of gravitas to my film, not the name Robert Elswit, but the image is going to just make this film a lot better. And so once Robert came on, look, he's a master storyteller. We didn't talk lenses or cameras or any of that stuff. We talked storytelling, story, character. We spent months breaking down the script. What does this mean? He had 1,000 questions. What does this mean? And like, he challenged me constantly. What does this mean? What does this mean? What does this mean? Why is this here? Why is this here? Go ask the writer. Why is this here? Why is this? It's like, it was a constant like barrage of like, I have to figure out how to shoot it. You have to figure out how to direct it. And we have to figure out how to collectively do this thing together. And you have to, as the director, go back to the studio, go back to the writer and make sure that they know how to answer this. Because if they don't, then, you know, so he taught me a lot of inside baseball. That's what it felt like. I felt like I had someone that intimately knew the game. I'd been playing my whole life. And like, maybe my instincts got me to a certain place, but now I have a different vantage point into how to get decisions made before it's too late to make those decisions, before we're in the edit and now I have to go back to a reshoot. And so we spent countless hours really, really dissecting script. And that was probably the biggest, learning experience for me as a filmmaker. We also watched countless movies together. It became my set wife. We went dating. Like we saw countless movies. We would go to the movies weekly. And I'm like, I'm having so much fun. I'm with somebody that I want to work with, who's an expert. I'm a student. I feel like a student. I'm a student. I'm just trying to learn. And what better person than to have that kind of dance partner. So Robert, like, again, the camera and the lighting and all that stuff came really much later. It came after conversations about what story we wanted to tell. And once I figured out what story I wanted to tell, and I had the permission of Zach and the family and the studio to do that, we were smooth sailing from that point.
That's awesome. And then you mentioned Pamela Martin, obviously an Oscar nominee. And I was looking through hers and I'm like, oh, the movies that I was like, that stood out to me on her resume today when I was like looking, it's like Little Miss Sunshine, The Fighter, Slums of Beverly Hills, all these movies about like really big, like family movies, basically, that also were like doing other things. And like, that's King Richard too. And I guess how did you, like, was that something that attracted you to her, I guess? Or like how did, yeah.
150%. The Fighter and Little Miss Sunshine were two of the movies that I thought like are the kind of movies in tone and in family and like that I thought I could really pull from. I also met Pamela, the summer of 2017 at the Sundance Lab, another organic relationship. And I remember, like, when I watched Little Miss Sunshine, what I loved about the movie was each person in that VW van was a character. Each person in that film was a character, and they don't have a lot of real estate. Some of but they they maximize their real estate. And I thought she did an incredible job in that film. The Fighter, I actually stole a shot when the entire Williams family is sitting on one side of the couch and Rick Macy sitting on the other. I was like, that's a shot from The Fighter. Like, you know, I just wanted the family on one side. Like, did it really happen in real life? I don't know, but I just visually, it was so striking, and it was so important for me to show this family unit, because I think that's what makes the film special. Of course, there's Venus and Serena. We already, you know, we know who they've become, but we don't know that Genesis story. We don't know that they had older sisters that were picking up balls and hanging signs and traveling to the court and spending as many hours as they were on the court training. We don't know that their mom was not just a mom, that she was also a full-time coach, that she was not only providing the food, but also preparing the food and then coaching full-time. Like, we discover this thing, these attributes about this family, which makes Richard's plan even that much richer, because he had soldiers to execute this plan. He had, you know, they were the spine in a lot of ways to his plan. Yes, it was his idea. And yes, his idea was for the girls to play tennis, and he will get credited for that. And he will get credited for being ahead of his time, as he was, because he was a visionary in a lot of ways, for playing in a sport that they, you know, typically would not be in. And so, you know, look, I'm going to tell people I wouldn't take all 78 pages out of the plan, but I would definitely take a few. And even as a parent myself, I think it is important to know, if you give love and commitment and dedication to something, if you nurture that thing, it can become great. If you believe in yourself, it can become great. And I hope that the movie sits somewhere in that pocket, that it's not about winning or losing. It's about, you know, you know, they win. Their legacy will be far more than being tennis players. They'll just be about being great human beings and great storytellers and great citizens. And I think that's where the movie, I hope, lies. Of course, they are great and they turned out to be amazing, but it's because they didn't falter. They didn't crumble under the pressure. This family is so rich beyond money. They were rich in their love and commitment and the family unit that they had to bond together. And that's what I hope that the film really, you know, gives you that sense that it was a true team effort. They are as close as, you know, off screen as they are on. It's amazing to watch them together in the same space. They're just kids. They're just kids. And Richard and Orson certainly helped them to allow them to just be kids.
Yeah, I think you mentioned something earlier, I think, and just from your background, like you said, like your dad were in the short shorts. I think the thing I love about the film is that, again, there's a version of this where, like, you know, even though obviously, like, there's a version of this that's like more like He Got Game or something, right? Where it's like he's playing that kind of like domineering father. And there obviously are, Richard is very imposing figure at times, or a domineering figure, but your film has such empathy for him, and, like, you know, the family itself, and like the trials that he has to, like, you know, he believes in them so much. And I think that really comes through, and it's really it just is such a touching film that I think helps to transcend, you know, not just that kind of like story, but like a sports story as well. And I think that's why people have really responded to it. So I don't know if you don't need me to tell you that, but I mean, I think it is it's quite an accomplishment on that level. And I guess I know we have to wrap up, and I appreciate your time. I know, like, I think there's a world, probably, like you mentioned, like the Sundance Lab and stuff. There's a world where you come out of Sundance and you get, like, you know, a Marvel movie or some like big blockbuster thing. I love personally that you're like, this is a movie that, like, they don't make anymore, because it's like an adult drama with like a movie star doing, like, not a lot of special effects. So I'm sure there were some on the tennis scenes, you know what I mean? I guess, like, I don't know, does it seem like, is that, I'm glad you got to do that. I guess it seems increasingly rare, I guess, like, to make
Oh
this.
yeah, 100%. I mean, look, you know, the running time of the film, I thought I was waiting for the studio to tell me to cut it down, and like, they just love the movie, and they don't make movies like that anymore. They don't make movies like that anymore, and you know, it's sad. I grew up watching those movies, so I love those movies, and I always wanted to make a movie that you could recite the lines to. Those are the movies that we grew up, whether it was, you know, Breakfast Club or E.T. or, you know, Spielberg movie. Yeah, we just grew up being able to recite the entire movie. And And I hope for a generation of kids that maybe they'll be reciting King Richard, that could be cool. Like how amazing would that be to be able to do that for a community or a generation of kids? Look, it is, without sounding cliche, it is for everybody, that there's something that everybody can take away from this journey. I never thought about it as a get out of Compton story. It's a I am from Compton story. This is one of the most prideful families I've ever met. They're so proud to be from Compton. They were giving back to that community the entire time. They didn't wait to become famous to give back. They were doing that all along the way. It's a testament to who they are. It's a testament to their upbringing. I hope I did some justice to the Williams family. It was an honor, obviously, working with Will. I think he delivers an exceptional role. Ingenue, the entire cast. I mean, Sanaya, Demi, Tony, John, exceptional cast. I mean, I could not have done it without them. The craftsmanship that I had, and I hope the film really sits in that, in a canon of films that help to reach a larger audience, not just this year, but many years to come. And hopefully it'll, like I said, hopefully it'll be something that my kids can one day recite the lines to.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, why not? It's Will Smith and it's great. So I think you're not. I think you're on to something. Ray Green, King Richard is the movie. It's in theaters now on HBO Max. Thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.